Hello everyone, today we are taking a look at the Tiny T from GameHat-Aerial. They kind of call this one the America because of America's 250th. So it's got a special color motif. And if you are interested in the Tiny T, I think they also list it as the Tiny T Squishy on the GameHat-Aerial website. I've got a coupon code good through the 17th of July that will get you $10 off. It's NB10 and I'll put that on screen. And if you're interested in their other products, which you may have seen here on the channel, Whoops were kind of one of the first things that GameHat-Aerial got started with. They're actually reducing pricing across all of their bind and flies, $30 to $50. So if something you've seen in the past on the channel or elsewhere has interested you, but the price was a little bit too much, you might want to check it out one more time. The flight controller is the Happy Model X14 flight controller all-in-one. This is the analog version, so we have our Express LRS antenna, a little copper wire down there, and a 400 milliwatt VTX. Motors are the RNC Power 1203 8000 kV, and on those motors are classic Gem Fan 2540 props. And last but not least, the Caddx Ant is the camera. It weighs about 61.5 grams. The standard battery holder that it comes with, the TPU prints, are designed around 550 milliamp batteries. And with the GNB battery, it comes in at just about 90.2 grams. And with the Beta FPV 550, it comes in at 91 grams. To fly other batteries, you will have to acquire a battery strap because it doesn't come with it. But I really like this metal buckle from Pyrodrone. This size is the 135 millimeter size of strap off of pyrodrone.com. Comes in at $299. Getting just about 118 millimeters motor post to motor post. And the carbon fiber is 2.5 millimeters thick, and we've talked about the importance of that in the past. And the arms are 7.2 millimeters wide. Before we get into the flight, the one thing I want to draw your attention to is this one has, for 2.5 inch 2S, really big boost, and you get that draw away from the earth when you punch up and then you nose down and it continues to come away from the earth. We've got to have a name for that. Spaceman, anti-gravity, moonwalk, what have you. There's got to be a name for that. This, for a 2.5 inch 2S, is got quite a bit of that. It caught me by surprise. And in some regards, my first two flights, I thought of it as jumpy. You adjust here after, a few flights. But this one has actually got quite a bit of that hop that you might want in your flights. Winds are negligible, and you may be hearing a storm outside as I record this. I don't know if that's coming through in the microphone. The storm I'm referring to is real time as I'm making this recording, not in the flight footage that we're watching. I was actually out flying this a little bit yesterday. Here in my area, we kind of have several 4th of July events with some of the smaller towns around. So last night I was over at a 4th of July event over at my sister's place. And then we got 4th of July here in my town coming up here today. If the rain ever stops, I can't imagine how you can do 4th of July stuff in the rain. I don't think I've ever in my life had to try that. But pay attention to those punch outs. I do a number of them in this flight, and this flight's going to be about 3 minutes and 40 seconds with a little bit more flight time to spare if we really wanted to make sure our battery landed at that 3.5 volts. But one of the things that I always like performance over image quality. But you could go with HD0 or walk snail. There is room for a second layer board in this. But as the version that I have in front of me, it is analog. And especially in this lighting, you may want to take another look at some of the other Caddx Ant video footage. It's been out for a long time just to see about other lighting, because right now in this flight, it's a pretty nice solid day. It is in the evening time. You can see the sun is a little bit low. It's about 7:30 in the evening. And I believe I already said it, the winds are very, very negligible. So it's not helping me on these short little punch outs over the house, throw over the house. The winds are maybe 4 to 5 miles an hour, and probably even less of that directly in my backyard. One of the things about GameHat-Aerial that I have to repeat just to make sure, in case you're not familiar, is it's kind of a bespoke company. So they take parts, known parts that they believe in from manufacturers in the market, and they assemble them, and then they do a PID tune on them. Of course, they pride themselves on the PID tune, and they also offer other sorts of features that you might not be aware of through GameHat-Aerial. They have extra options. You can get extra props. They have the in-air care, they call it, which is $35, and it has some limited warranty. You get access to the Discord server, and the Discord server access isn't just limited to GameHat-Aerial specific products. So if you like to build or you want to get into build, that may be handy for you. They have a new pocket dock, which I'll show after the flight, for 75 millimeter whoops. that actually has a lifetime warranty. All you have to pay is shipping. If you were to somehow figure out a way to accidentally break a pocket dock, you can get a new one for just the cost of shipping, which if you're in the U.S. probably wouldn't be too much. And that's one of the things about these U.S. specific companies is it is very costly for our friends outside of the U.S. to be able to obtain these things. You end up with shipping costs that are 50% of your total purchase price. Maybe you're used to that, maybe you're not, but that's something that we just can't be helped. You can't absorb that shipping cost, and U.S. companies don't seem to have access to the extremely cheap shipping like we see from Temu or something like that. They have reduced their prices somehow in this day and age, $30 to $50 across the board. I believe that is specific to bind and flies, so that is something else to consider when it comes to these sorts of things. I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe they're buying more, so they're getting bulk pricing. I'm just speculating. I don't have inner working knowledge of how these small companies are able to do the things that they're able to do. I just like to get their products and fly them, explore them, and then show them to you all. Hopefully that flight as we come to an end, maybe you need to go back and watch it. We really got some anti-gravity, some moonwalk, some time in the air as we pull away from the earth, and I really, really like that. That's a strong bias of mine, so keep that in mind. But like I said, just about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and we had a little bit of battery to spare, so we could have flown a little bit longer. So the TP is included. Oftentimes with a number of these companies, the TPU, I can't remember, is it Darwin that tends to charge extra for the TPU, like the end of the arm, stuff like that. So all the TPU that you see will come with it. I had made a couple of suggestions to GameHat-Aerial. These were, I don't want to take credit for the design and the effort that went into it. They were just suggestions that I made. I thought doing a little loop thing, anything down here to help secure the antenna as well as the battery lead would be a good thing. Of course, my personal preference still would be to zip tie the antenna to one of these posts or even to the rear of the carbon fiber down here, rather than relying on the TPU to keep that pull resistance down. This is to capture your balance port on your battery. I tend to, do I have a battery out? Yeah, I tend to do this with my battery. So I put a little cross in the wires and I pop it through and then I twist and then I twist, until I get the battery plugged in to a point where this is all fairly static. It's not going to move around much, specifically in flight. So that's typically what I do, and I think GameHat does the same thing. I suggested that for anyone who might want a different method. It's not a big deal. Of course, as I mentioned it already, you could go with a battery strap. You could put a little piece of battery mat down there, maybe some UMA grip. I don't even know if you can get UMA grip anymore. I've been operating on some old UMA grip that I got, but I think other companies make an UMA grip like sort of battery pad, and then a battery strap. And I said previously that this is 135 millimeters. I think it actually measures longer than that, but maybe I'm measuring from buckle to end. I think I get like 145, whereas they might be measuring from here to the end. I don't know, but they only have two sizes for this particular one. $299, it's a little bit of an investment, but if you want some extra security with holding your battery down. The camera is static as far as the camera angle goes, and if you have a specific camera angle that you want, I would encourage you to make contact with GameHat to see about getting a particular angle that you are looking for. That way they can include that in your kit when you purchase it. There's really not a lot to say other than, it flies really well. It's got a prototypical GameHat-Aerial sort of PID tune on it that is it tracks very well. I didn't have any problems with excess bounce back or even prop wash. And I suspect, I haven't PID tuned these props in a long time. It might have been Betaflight 357 or 358, maybe even somewhere around there when I last had to tune these props. And I like these props because a high pitch prop do give you that immediate boost when you've got a proper power to weight ratio on a quad, and it really throws you up in the air like you've taken off in a rocket. And I believe they probably went with these props because their America theme or motif with the color scheme. Getting blue props is a struggle, and you can see mine kind of have green schmutz from all the grass landings. So if you wanted to go with a different prop, you would get more flight time if you're more of a cruiser on a lower pitched prop. Of course, I don't know if they have a PID tune worked up for very many props. So again, if you're interested in something like this, but you're looking for a different sort of flight style, that may be something GameHat-Aerial can can provide. It will obviously, it will delay you receiving a product if you were to order it, and they might want you to make an order before they actually do the work. So I just keep that in mind. You know, it's a bespoke FPV shop. I think they really want to serve the community well, and so they're really wanting to do what customers would like for them to do. But of course, I don't speak for them. I'm just making suggestions on if you see little things that you would like to change. Maybe reach out and see if they would be willing to. Not every change, it's tough when you're going to be working with potentially hundreds or thousands of people of making every change or making every option viable for to make some money from the product as well as be able to serve your customers. So reach out to them and ask them. I think that's one of the great things that we have about these bespoke SPV companies that we've seen here recently popping up is they're going to be more flexible with the customer in order to build that customer base, because as a customer you appreciate that extra effort. They don't have to do it, and our big manufacturers are certainly not going to do it. So this is one way of getting that. I didn't mention it in the quick specs, but we have connectors as we do on these all-in-one boards most of the time. We've got our camera connector down here in the bottom. You can't really see it, but it's pretty close. Maybe we can get a shot of it up here. That camera connector is that smaller connector. We've kind of gone down to that in the most recent iterations. That's something else that you might want to consider. And what the one criticism that I have is one that I oftentimes have is there is not any motor wire tape, and I have my favorite motor wire tape. Let's do our little adjustment here, and I'll explain why I think they didn't do that. It's not that they don't know. I think you're safe from the prop line. Am I getting that as a decent angle to where you can see that? So we're 15 millimeters or 10 millimeters at least from the prop line. So they've cut the motor wires down. And I suspect they didn't do that because it messes with their motif, their color scheme that they're going for on the America that we've got here. So yeah, myself, if it were mine and I were to hold on to it, I would take a little piece of my favorite a motor wire tape, and I've got it linked down in the video description. You can get it from both AliExpress as well as Amazon. So you can choose your source and just put a strip, around, wrap it around there just to make sure. I'm cautious. I am not into shelf queens as much as I am to making sure that the quads I fly are ready to go each and every time I want to go fly them. So I would do that. And if I didn't say it already, hopefully I did. This is a collaboration between GameHat-Aerial and Jack's 3D Printing. Jack's a solid dude. He's been in the FPV game for quite a while. 5 years ago, he cut a frame that was, I think, primarily designed by Kevin Langlois, TKS, and I kind of made some suggestions to fit what, my preferences and biases, and I've been flying those ever since. Some of you may know that one. It's called the Rocket Race off of Jack's 3D Printing. It's a 2-inch 2S. It's more of a cube frame. But if you're wondering about Jack's 3D Printing, company's been around a good long while in the FPV, cutting carbon, doing prints of various sorts. So check his site out as well. And the last thing I'll mention is the new 75 millimeter pocket docks. The one thing about these pocket docks that have always, I don't know how one gets a print to go like this. I gave away my 3D printer to my brother-in-law and his younger kids. 3D printing was never something that I really caught the bug for. Yeah, it was neat at first, but it just didn't stick with me. So we have the GameHat-Aerial logo sticker inside, and then of course you slide your 75 millimeter down here, and you can store 6 batteries across the top. And it's solid on the top, and it's a little bit flexible on the bottom. But of course, this is probably a different material altogether that's very, very flexible. They say it works as a stand, and I'm wondering if they meant like for takeoff and landing, to where you have it sitting flat, you're in a field or something and you put your whoop on top and you take off. I'm wondering, because otherwise it does sit like this with the logos upside down. I don't know. I don't quite understand that. But it is pretty interesting how they, I don't know, to me that's kind of a mystery that I have. I'm sure some of you, many of you, know exactly how that's done, and then maybe it's easy. It's just one of those things where I'm like, that's different materials. I don't know what sort of printer you would need and design elements and all the considerations, but then we also have it up here. So that is available. Again, that is for a 75 millimeter whoops. I believe they also have 65 millimeter versions available. They do have a full warranty, to where if you do find a way to break this without malice, that all you have to pay is shipping. So you get another pocket dock essentially for free. Right now, the America, which I think that is the first time I remember hearing it said like that was Gallagher. You remember the 70s, 80s comedian that used to smash watermelons on stage? America. I think he used to say that. Anywho, it goes on pre-order here in a couple days. I'm recording this on the 4th. It doesn't go on pre-order according to their website until the 9th. $250. Of course, they have other things that you can add on, whether to get to be just some parts extras, or if you want to go for their warranty and support, which gives you further access and assurances of reliability, so to speak. You want to read up on that if that does interest you. I see it here listed on the site. I think it says $35 on that. So something else to check out. Of course, they have had other quads that I've enjoyed as well. The whoops that they have had on, they still list them on their website. I've shown them on the channel, so maybe they caught your eye in the past and you were thinking about that. So maybe just revisit it if you are curious about the America or one of the other GameHat-Aerial products. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the 4th for those that are celebrating the 4th. Thanks for watching.